the alien princess rejected 1,000 suitors, until a humble human showed his worth, HFY Stories. The sky over the planet Livoria shimmered with a pale blue light, casting gentle glows across the crystalline towers of the royal city. The air was crisp, carrying a faint scent of minerals and the faint hum of distant engines. The city had long been known across the galaxy as the seat of the Livorians, an alien race admired for their grace, intelligence, and power. At the heart of this city lived Princess Elira, a figure both revered and feared. Elira had grown up surrounded by wealth, knowledge, and endless attention. Her days were filled with study and training, and her nights with countless diplomatic gatherings and ceremonies. Suitors from far-off planets arrived regularly, each seeking her favor, each hoping to claim the hand of the galaxy's most sought-after princess. Yet, no one had ever earned her trust or respect. Every suitor failed in some way, some by arrogance, others by ignorance, and a few by sheer recklessness. On this particular morning, Elira stood on the balcony of her tower, gazing at the horizon. The sunlight reflected off the crystalline towers, creating a rainbow of colors that danced across the city. She loved this quiet moment, when no one disturbed her, and she could feel the weight of her destiny without having to smile at any diplomat or noble. Her mind, however, was never truly at peace. She often wondered if there was anyone in the universe capable of surprising her. Far from Livoria, in a small, quiet human colony on the edge of the Milky Way, a young man named Lurin went about his daily life. He was not noble, not rich, and certainly not extraordinary in the eyes of most people. He worked as a repair technician, fixing old starships and machinery for a living. His hands were often stained with oil, and his clothes carried the faint smell of metal and fuel. But Lurin had something that few people in the galaxy possessed: curiosity and determination. One day, Lurin received a mysterious message through an ancient communication network, a network that most humans had long forgotten. The message was simple but strange. It invited him to a competition on Livoria. No explanation, no details, only an address and a warning that failure would mean immediate disqualification. Lurin's first reaction was disbelief. Why would a lowly human be summoned to a palace of the most powerful alien princess in the galaxy? Yet, something inside him stirred, a sense of destiny or opportunity he could not ignore. He prepared his small ship for the long journey. The vessel was modest, patched in several places but reliable. As he launched from the colony, the stars stretched like rivers of light, guiding him toward Livoria. During the long journey, Lurin thought about what awaited him. He imagined aliens with strange forms and powers, elaborate trials, and perhaps danger. Still, he held on to one thought. He would show his worth, not for glory, not for wealth, but to prove that determination and heart could surpass all expectations. When Lurin arrived at Livoria, the city was even more magnificent than he had imagined. Towers of crystal glinted in the sunlight, and energy fields shimmered above the streets. Hovering vehicles moved smoothly through the air, and beings of many shapes and colors walked among each other in harmony. For a moment, Lurin felt small and insignificant. He had never seen a place like this, and he knew that every step he took would be closely watched. He was met by a Livorian attendant named Kalen, a tall figure with silver skin and eyes that glowed faintly. Kalen's voice was smooth but carried authority. "You have been summoned for the trials, human. Only those who can demonstrate courage, intelligence, and heart may proceed. Fail and you will leave without ever seeing the princess." Lurin nodded, trying to hide his nervousness. "I understand," he said. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. The trials began the following day. The first challenge tested intelligence and strategy. Participants were presented with a complex puzzle, a holographic maze filled with shifting barriers, traps, and hidden clues. Other contestants, beings from powerful empires and wealthy planets, quickly grew frustrated. They argued, relied on brute force, or tried to manipulate the maze using tools and gadgets. Lurin, however, took a different approach. He observed, paused, and carefully studied the patterns. Slowly, methodically, he found the path through, step by step, relying only on his reasoning and intuition. By the end, the maze opened before him like a door, and he emerged first among all the contestants. Word of the human success spread quickly. Whispers traveled through the palace and among the spectators. How could a simple human, a being without advanced technology or status, outperform the best of the galaxy? Even the princess herself heard the news. Elira's curiosity was piqued. She had never seen a human stand out among so many powerful beings. There was a flicker of interest in her usually calm expression. Perhaps this one was different. The second trial tested courage and resourcefulness. Contestants were placed in a simulated battlefield, filled with unpredictable hazards and sudden ambushes. Many of the other suitors panicked, relying on weapons and shields that quickly failed. Lurin, though, moved with careful precision. He avoided traps, helped others when he could, and used his surroundings to his advantage. When an unstable bridge threatened to collapse, he saved a group of contestants, not seeking recognition, but simply because it was the right thing to do. Again, Lurin succeeded where others faltered, and again the whispers grew louder. Some contestants began to resent him, mocking the human for his lack of armor, lack of advanced technology, and humble appearance. Lurin ignored them, focused only on the trials and his own determination. By the end of the second day, the princess decided to observe the contestants in person. Elira descended from her tower in a shimmering vessel, her presence commanding the attention of all. Her eyes, sharp and discerning, watched Lurin as he moved through the challenges. She noted how he acted, not with arrogance, not with fear, but with quiet confidence and kindness. He did not seek to impress her, yet his actions spoke louder than words ever could. The third trial tested empathy and understanding. Contestants were faced with scenarios in which they had to make choices affecting the lives of others. Some chose power, some chose advantage, but Lurin chose balance. He listened carefully, offered solutions that helped everyone, and showed patience even when others became desperate or angry. His decisions reflected a deep sense of morality and fairness. Elira felt something stir within her as she watched. She had been promised the most brilliant, strongest, and wealthiest suitors in the galaxy, yet none had ever demonstrated this combination of intellect, courage, and heart. She had rejected them all for their flaws, but this human, he was different. That evening, the contestants gathered in the palace courtyard for a ceremonial announcement. The air was tense. Competitors who had once mocked Lurin now looked at him with unease. Even some of the most confident beings were unsure how to react. Elira approached, her presence radiant, and the crowd fell silent. "The trials are not yet complete," she said, her voice carrying both authority and curiosity. "But one among you has shown qualities that I have rarely seen. Intelligence, courage, and heart are the pillars of true worth. This human, Lurin, has demonstrated all three in ways that surpass expectations." A murmur ran through the crowd. Humans were known, but rarely for such feats. Many had underestimated them, seeing only their fragility or simplicity. But now one stood out, undeniable and extraordinary. Lurin felt a mix of pride and nervousness. He bowed respectfully to the princess. "Thank you, Your Highness. I only did what I believed was right." Elira studied him closely, sensing the sincerity in his words. She had spent centuries observing others, learning to see beyond appearances. For the first time, she wondered what it might be like to know someone truly exceptional without the barriers of status, wealth, or power. As the night fell over Livoria, the city shimmered under countless stars. Lurin retired to a guest chamber, unaware that the princess herself had ordered a private observation of him. From her tower, Elira watched silently, intrigued and unsettled by the simplicity and depth of this human. She had rejected 1,000 suitors, each promising power, beauty, or wealth. Yet here was someone who needed none of these and offered more than any of them ever could. In the quiet hours, Lurin could not have known the stir he had caused. The galaxy had always underestimated humans, and many still did. But on Livoria, the winds of change had begun to blow, heralding the arrival of a humble human whose worth was yet to be fully revealed. The night ended, but neither the princess nor the human would rest easy. For Elira, curiosity mingled with caution, and for Lurin, determination mingled with hope. The trials ahead promised challenges unlike any before, and the story of a human proving his worth among the stars was only just beginning. The sun rose over Livoria, painting the crystalline towers with gold and pink. The city stirred with energy as citizens prepared for another day of trade, study, and observation. But in the royal palace, the air was tense. Whispers of the human, Lurin, had spread far and wide. Even the most seasoned diplomats and powerful aliens could not hide their curiosity and concern. Many had believed the trials would be a formality, a display of superiority. Instead, a simple human had risen above them, and now the question on everyone's mind was whether he could continue to do so. Lurin woke early, his mind already replaying the challenges of the previous days. He knew the next trial would test him in ways that required more than courage or intelligence. It would test his spirit. The humans of old stories, told in scattered texts across Livoria, had often been underestimated. Lurin felt a quiet pride that he could represent them now, but he also knew that pride without wisdom could be dangerous. When he arrived at the palace courtyard, he saw the other contestants already gathered. They eyed him with caution and thinly veiled resentment. Some had tried to speak to him before, but his quiet, calm demeanor had made them hesitate. Lurin did not seek to provoke them, yet the tension was unmistakable. Kalen, the silver-skinned attendant, approached. "Today's trial is one of survival and diplomacy," Kalen explained. "You will be transported to a floating arena above the clouds. There, you must navigate both the dangers of the environment and the challenges posed by other competitors. Remember, survival alone is not enough. You must show the ability to lead and make choices that affect others." The contestants were guided to their vessels, each uniquely designed for the floating arena. Lurin's craft was simple, without advanced weapons or shields, but it was steady and reliable. As the vessels lifted into the air, Lurin felt a thrill mixed with tension. The sky stretched endlessly, clouds forming vast patterns beneath them. The arena awaited, a place where skill, wit, and courage would be tested beyond imagination. Upon arrival, the arena revealed itself as a massive expanse of floating platforms, connected by narrow bridges that swayed with the wind. Energy barriers shifted unpredictably, creating zones of danger and safe passage. Suspended high above the clouds, the arena was both beautiful and perilous. Contestants would need balance, intelligence, and foresight to survive. From the observation decks above, Princess Elira watched silently. Her violet eyes followed every move of the human. She noticed how he studied the arena, analyzing the patterns of the energy barriers and bridges. Where others charged recklessly or sought shortcuts, Lurin paused, observing before acting. It was a careful approach, yet it carried confidence. She found herself leaning closer to the glass, intrigued by the simplicity of his strategy. The trial began. Contestants leaped across bridges, dodged energy pulses, and navigated floating platforms with precision. Many fell, their vessels crashing into the clouds below. Others relied on powerful energy shields, which quickly depleted under the constant strain of the arena's challenges. Lurin moved steadily, trusting his instincts and carefully timing each leap. When a platform threatened to collapse under the weight of another competitor, he slowed, guiding the other being to safety before continuing. The unexpected kindness did not go unnoticed. A few contestants began to see Lurin not as a threat, but as a problem to be understood. Some approached him, offering alliances or requesting advice. Lurin considered each carefully, understanding that his choices would affect not just his own survival, but the outcome for many others. Hours passed, and the arena tested every skill Lurin possessed. The wind grew stronger, the platforms more unstable, and the energy barriers more unpredictable. Yet he persisted. His movements were precise, his decisions measured. When a rival competitor, a tall and armored alien named Rilak, attempted to push him off a bridge, Lurin did not retaliate with violence. Instead, he used a clever maneuver, shifting the balance of the bridge and causing Rilak to lose ground while remaining unharmed himself. The act was met with silence, then reluctant respect from the other participants. Meanwhile, Elira's curiosity deepened. She had never seen a competitor act without ego or greed. Every other suitor she had observed, even the most brilliant, had sought advantage at the expense of others. Lurin's humility and intelligence created a tension she could not ignore. She wondered how far he could go, and whether his humanity could withstand trials designed for beings far more powerful than him. As the sun reached its highest point, the final section of the arena appeared, a massive platform with shifting hazards, narrow passages, and a single glowing crystal at its center. The crystal was said to hold the key to the trial's completion. Only those who reached it and demonstrated their ability to protect and guide others would succeed. Lurin approached cautiously. Several competitors rushed ahead, driven by desire to win quickly. But the platform was unstable, and energy barriers shifted unpredictably. Lurin used his careful observation to navigate safely. Along the way, he helped competitors who had stumbled, offering support without hesitation. Some declined his help, suspicious of his motives. Others accepted, recognizing the sincerity in his actions. When he reached the glowing crystal, the final challenge appeared, a test of leadership. He was presented with a scenario in which he had to guide a group of competitors across a collapsing platform. The obstacles were severe, and mistakes could mean elimination for everyone. Lurin took a deep breath, considering the best course of action. He communicated clearly, coordinating movements and timing each step. His calm, steady voice reassured those who followed him, even as the platform trembled beneath them. The challenge was intense, but Lurin's guidance prevailed. Every participant reached the other side safely, and the crystal pulsed with bright light, signaling the trial's successful completion. Gasps and murmurs ran through the observation decks as contestants processed what had just happened. Lurin had not only survived, but had demonstrated courage, intelligence, and leadership in a way no one had anticipated. Princess Elira descended from her observation deck to the platform's edge. Her presence commanded attention, and even the competitors who had doubted Lurin now looked upon him with astonishment. She stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the human who had quietly defied expectations. "You have done what none of the others could," she said, her voice clear and steady. "Not because you are stronger, faster, or wealthier, but because you act with thought, kindness, and courage. These are qualities I value above all. Tell me, human, what drives you to continue, even when the path is dangerous and uncertain." Lurin bowed respectfully, feeling both pride and humility. "I do what I believe is right," he replied. "I do not seek glory or favor. I want to show that even someone simple can make a difference if they act with heart and determination." Elira studied him, her expression unreadable. No one had ever answered her question with such honesty and clarity. The other competitors shifted uneasily, realizing that Lurin's actions had changed the perception of the trials themselves. As the crowd dispersed, whispers of the human's deeds spread across the palace. Some were inspired, others resentful, but all recognized that something extraordinary had occurred. Lurin, exhausted but unbroken, returned to his chamber, unaware that Elira had ordered Kalen to observe him closely. She wished to see his behavior outside the trials, to understand whether the qualities he had displayed were genuine or merely part of a performance. That night, Livoria's twin moons rose over the city, casting silver light across the towers. Lurin sat by a small window in his chamber, looking out at the shimmering city below. He felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The trials had tested him beyond his expectations, yet he sensed that even greater challenges lay ahead. The presence of the princess, observing from afar, added a new layer of tension. He knew that impressing her would require more than skill. It would require patience, understanding, and courage of a different kind. For Elira, the night was restless. She had seen many beings from across the galaxy, but none had captured her attention in this way. The human was simple in appearance, yet his actions resonated with depth and sincerity. She found herself questioning her assumptions, wondering if the future she had envisioned for herself and her people could change because of him. The quiet tension of the palace was broken by a soft knock at Lurin's door. Kalen entered, his expression serious but respectful. "Princess Elira wishes to speak with you," he said. "She is curious about your thoughts and intentions, human. The time has come to see if your heart is as true as your actions." Lurin's heart raced. This was a moment he had not anticipated so soon. Meeting the princess in private was an honor few had ever received, and he knew that the conversation could shape the rest of his journey. He nodded to Kalen, adjusting his jacket and preparing himself. As he followed the attendant through the palace corridors, Lurin could feel the weight of history and expectation pressing down upon him. Yet he walked with calm determination, trusting in his instincts and in the choices that had brought him this far. Whatever awaited him, he resolved to remain true to himself. Princess Elira awaited him in a quiet chamber overlooking the city. Her presence was commanding, yet her expression was curious rather than distant. She motioned for Lurin to sit, and he obeyed, feeling the strange mixture of honor and unease. "You have surpassed all expectations in the trials," she said. "Yet actions alone are not enough. I wish to understand you, human. Tell me what guides your choices, what shapes your heart." Lurin took a deep breath, thinking carefully. "I have learned that power and wealth mean little if they are not guided by kindness and purpose," he said. "I act with the hope that my choices can help others, even if I fail sometimes. I do not seek to impress, only to do what is right." Elira studied him, her violet eyes searching his face for any hint of deception. She found none. For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of uncertainty mingled with hope. Perhaps the universe had brought this human to her not for the sake of the trials, but for something greater, a test not of strength, but of heart. As the night deepened, the city below shimmered under the twin moons. Lurin and Elira spoke at length, exploring ideas, dreams, and values. The princess found herself challenged in ways she had never anticipated, and the human felt a strange sense of connection he had never experienced before. The trial was over, but the journey had only begun. The stars above Livoria twinkled like distant promises. The city would awaken tomorrow to new challenges, and the human's path was far from complete. Yet both Lurin and Elira understood that something profound had begun, something that could change not only their lives but the destiny of the galaxy itself. The following morning, Livoria was alive with motion. Citizens moved swiftly along streets paved with shimmering crystal, their voices mingling with the hum of air transports and distant machinery. The palace, at the center of it all, was quieter but no less tense. Word of the human, Lurin, had spread even further than before. Beings from other worlds whispered in the halls, some in awe, others in envy. No one could understand how a single human had not only survived, but excelled in trials designed to test the galaxy's most powerful and cunning. Lurin woke before dawn, stretching and feeling the soreness of yesterday's trial. Despite exhaustion, he could not rest completely. His mind replayed the challenges he had faced, each decision and movement. He understood that the next trial would be even more difficult. The first two had tested intelligence, courage, and leadership. But now he had heard rumors that the next challenge would probe something far deeper: resilience, adaptability, and the ability to face the unknown. Kalen arrived at Lurin's quarters with the usual calm authority. "The next trial will begin shortly," he said. "It is unlike the others. You will enter the forest of echoes, where your choices will shape not only your survival but the outcome for those around you. Remember, the forest is unpredictable. No path is fixed, and dangers will appear without warning." The Forest of Echoes was legendary across the galaxy. Many stories spoke of it as a place where illusions could confuse the mind, where fear could twist reality, and where only those with clear purpose could navigate successfully. Lurin felt a twinge of apprehension, but he reminded himself that fear was only dangerous if it controlled him. He had come this far through observation, patience, and courage. These qualities would guide him now. Upon entering the forest, the air changed immediately. A heavy mist clung to every tree, and the light from Livoria's twin suns filtered in fractured beams. Strange sounds echoed all around, some like whispers, others like footsteps. Paths seemed to shift when he was not looking, and the trees themselves appeared to watch. Competitors who had followed him at first quickly began to falter. Panic replaced strategy, and some turned back, defeated before they had truly faced the challenge. Lurin moved carefully, listening to the faintest hints of sound and observing subtle shifts in the environment. He noticed patterns in the illusions and learned to trust his instincts rather than his eyes alone. At one point, a competitor, a tall, winged alien named Viral, was trapped by a sudden drop in the ground. Lurin extended a hand, guiding Viral to safety despite knowing that helping could slow his own progress. Viral hesitated, then accepted, and together they continued deeper into the forest. Hours passed in this manner. The forest grew darker, the illusions more vivid. Lurin began to face visions, images of his home colony, his friends, and even failures he feared might haunt him forever. Each illusion tested his resolve. Some were tempting, offering promises of safety or victory. Others were terrifying, meant to distract or break his focus. He realized that the forest did not simply challenge the body, it challenged the mind and spirit. Meanwhile, Princess Elira observed from a floating observation chamber above the forest. She had requested special equipment to monitor not only Lurin's movements, but also his physiological responses. Her interest had evolved from curiosity to something deeper. She wanted to understand whether his courage and heart were innate, or if they would crumble under pressure. The forest was known to expose hidden weaknesses, and she had seen many beings fail even when they appeared strong. Yet as she watched, she noted how he approached each illusion with calm reasoning, never losing focus or letting fear dictate his actions. Lurin reached a clearing where a massive, ancient tree stood. Its roots twisted in impossible directions, and the branches above seemed to stretch endlessly into the mist. At the base of the tree lay a glowing orb, pulsing faintly. Lurin knew instinctively that this was the focal point of the trial. But as he approached, the ground trembled and shadowy figures emerged from the mist. These were not competitors. They were illusions made to resemble beings he had known, some friends, some enemies, all demanding attention, pleading for aid or threatening harm. The shadows spoke in voices familiar and strange, testing his patience and emotions. Lurin took a deep breath, reminding himself that appearances could be deceiving. He approached one figure, an illusion of a friend in danger, and extended a hand. The shadow dissolved. Another figure, screaming accusations, approached. He did not engage with anger or fear. He moved carefully, guiding the illusions aside without harming them, keeping his focus on the glowing orb at the center. Each step required precision and balance. The platform beneath the tree shifted as if alive, and energy pulses moved unpredictably across the roots. Lurin adapted, leaping and climbing with steady confidence. Hours seemed to pass, though time itself felt strange in the forest of echoes. He began to notice subtle rhythms in the environment, the way energy pulses aligned with the wind, how the illusions flickered in response to his movements. Slowly, he learned to navigate the forest not by resisting it, but by understanding it. As he reached the glowing orb, the final challenge of the forest appeared, a riddle, encoded in light and sound. The orb projected multiple scenarios, each a test of morality, decision-making, and understanding of the universe's balance. Lurin considered each carefully. Some paths offered personal advantage at the expense of others. Others seemed neutral but carried hidden consequences. He closed his eyes, focusing on principles he had lived by: fairness, compassion, and reason. He chose paths that reflected these values. The orb pulsed brighter and brighter until it released a wave of energy that swept across the forest. The illusions dissolved, the mist lifted, and a clear path emerged. Competitors who had survived watched in awe as Lurin stood at the center, calm and composed despite the intensity of the trial. He had not only navigated the forest, but he had also demonstrated that wisdom, patience, and integrity could overcome even the most disorienting challenges. Princess Elira descended from her chamber to meet him. Her violet eyes studied him closely, as if trying to understand how such a simple being could demonstrate such extraordinary resilience. "You have faced the forest of echoes and emerged not only alive, but unbroken," she said. "Many have entered and lost themselves, but you remained steadfast. Tell me, human, how do you maintain such clarity under pressure?" Lurin paused, considering his words. "I focus on what is true and what is right," he replied. "Fear and deception are strong, but they are temporary. If I remain true to my values and my purpose, I can navigate even the most confusing challenges." Elira studied him silently. She had spent centuries surrounded by power, influence, and cunning, yet none had ever answered her questions with such clarity. His simplicity was not weakness, it was strength. She felt an unfamiliar stirring of respect and intrigue. This human was unlike anyone she had ever known. The other competitors approached cautiously, some openly curious, others still suspicious. They had witnessed a human succeed where countless others had failed. Some were inspired, realizing that intellect and heart could surpass strength and technology. Others were frustrated, their pride wounded by the humility of his approach. Lurin, weary but steady, helped guide a few competitors who had been disoriented by the forest. He offered words of encouragement, assisting them without expecting gratitude or recognition. Even those who had doubted him began to see that his approach was not about victory alone. It was about understanding and cooperation. As evening fell over Livoria, the forest transformed. Mist cleared, sunlight reflected off the crystalline canopy, and the arena of the trial disappeared as if it had never existed. Lurin returned to the palace, exhausted yet resolute. He knew the next trials would challenge him in new ways, but he also felt a growing sense of purpose. His journey was no longer just about proving himself. It was about demonstrating that courage, heart, and integrity could shine in even the most alien of worlds. Princess Elira observed him from her tower that night, thoughtful and introspective. She had never imagined that a human could influence her perception of the galaxy so profoundly. She had rejected countless suitors for their flaws, yet this one human, simple and humble, had managed to show qualities she had longed to see. The night deepened, and the city below glimmered under twin moons. Lurin sat quietly by his window, gazing at the stars. The trials had tested his body, mind, and spirit, yet he felt more alive than ever. He understood that the path ahead would be even more difficult, But he also realized that the greatest challenges often came with the greatest opportunities. For Elira, the night brought questions and curiosity. She wondered what it meant for the future of her people, for the trials, and for herself. Could a single human truly change the course of events that had long seemed inevitable? And if so, what would the consequences be? The city slept, but the currents of destiny were stirring. A human had proven his worth beyond expectation, and the princess, long accustomed to control and certainty, found herself facing uncertainty and fascination. The next trials would come, and the story of Lurin, the humble human, was far from over. The morning sun rose slowly over Livoria, casting long beams of light across the crystalline towers. The city below was already alive with activity, though within the palace, the atmosphere was charged with tension. Word of the human, Lurin, had spread further than anyone had anticipated. Some of the other contestants were wary, others frustrated, but all were aware that he had become the standard by which everyone else would be measured. Lurin awoke early, his muscles sore from the forest of Echo's trial. Yet there was no time to rest. Today's challenge would test strength, endurance, and ingenuity in ways he had never faced before. Kalen, the silver-skinned attendant, appeared at his door with the usual calm authority. "The next trial is called the Gauntlet of Elements," Kalen said. "It will test not only your physical abilities, but your ability to adapt quickly to extreme conditions. Many fail because they try to fight the elements rather than work with them." Lurin nodded. He understood that this would be less about intellect or morality, and more about resilience and adaptability. He prepared himself mentally as he made his way to the launch bay, where contestants gathered beside their vehicles. These were no longer mere ships. They were specialized craft capable of withstanding storms, heat, cold, and turbulence. Lurin's craft was simple, but he had learned that simplicity combined with observation often outweighed advanced technology. The vehicles launched into the sky, and immediately the trial began. The first challenge was a region of raging winds that tore across floating platforms. Many contestants struggled to maintain balance, relying on powerful energy shields that soon failed under the constant pressure. Lurin focused on timing, adjusting his movements to the rhythm of the wind rather than resisting it. He leapt and glided, finding stability where others were thrown off. Next came the scorching plains, a field of molten rock and shifting lava rivers. Heat waves distorted vision, and energy pulses threatened to overwhelm weaker shields. Many competitors panicked, jumping recklessly from platform to platform. Lurin paused, observing the patterns of the shifting terrain. He calculated each step carefully, using cooled rock formations and stable pathways to navigate safely. Along the way, he noticed a young alien named Tavi struggling. Without hesitation, he extended his hand, guiding Tavi to a stable path. Tavi hesitated at first, unsure of why a human would help, but then accepted, and together they moved forward. The elements grew more extreme. Blinding storms erupted above the contestants, hail and lightning striking unpredictably. Some competitors turned back, overwhelmed by the chaos. Others fought blindly, their arrogance and fear working against them. Lurin, however, remained calm, observing and adjusting, finding the balance between patience and decisive action. His movements were precise, almost intuitive, as if he had become one with the storm rather than an opponent to it. Meanwhile, Princess Elira observed from a high chamber above the trial zone. Her violet eyes followed Lurin as he navigated the gauntlet of elements. She noted how he adapted not by resisting, but by understanding the forces around him. Every competitor was being tested physically, but few demonstrated the presence of mind and calm that Lurin showed. She found herself leaning forward, intrigued and quietly impressed. None of the thousands of suitors she had encountered had shown this combination of intelligence, courage, and adaptability under pressure. Hours passed. The final section of the trial, the Elemental Summit, approached. This was a massive floating platform with multiple environmental hazards occurring simultaneously. Volcanic eruptions, high winds, sudden ice formations, and unpredictable lightning strikes. To reach the summit, a competitor had to navigate all these elements in harmony, maintaining balance and focus while helping others when necessary. Lurin paused before entering the summit. He studied the hazards, noticing the patterns and rhythms in the chaos. Competitors charged ahead recklessly, only to be thrown off by the combination of dangers. Lurin, however, moved with careful precision. He guided Tavi and a few others, showing them the safest paths, coordinating movements to avoid collisions and environmental hazards. His leadership became apparent not through words but through actions. Those who followed him felt more confident, trusting his judgment and strategy. At the center of the summit, a glowing crystal awaited, similar to the orb in the Forest of Echoes. It represented not only success in the trial but recognition of true skill and character. As Lurin approached, a sudden energy surge swept across the platform. Competitors were thrown off balance, and the wind intensified to nearly unmanageable levels. Lurin adjusted quickly, anchoring himself and helping others stabilize. His calm focus allowed him to approach the crystal safely while ensuring that none of the others following him were harmed. Princess Elira descended to the summit as Lurin reached the crystal. She watched quietly as he touched it, and the platform pulsed with light, signaling the successful completion of the trial. The other competitors looked on in awe. They had witnessed not only Lurin's survival, but his ability to guide others safely through extreme adversity. "You have done what few could even imagine," Elira said, her voice clear and steady. "Not because you possess the greatest strength or the most advanced technology, but because you understand balance, adaptation, and the responsibility to help others. Tell me, human, why do you act with such integrity even when others abandon it for self-interest?" Lurin bowed respectfully. "I believe that true strength comes from understanding, not from force alone. Helping others does not weaken me. It strengthens the path for everyone. If I succeed while others fail, it is no victory. True success is shared." Elira regarded him silently, her expression unreadable. She had spent centuries observing beings from across the galaxy. Some were brilliant, some were powerful, some were cunning. Yet none had impressed her as this human did. There was a depth to him that could not be taught, a resilience and wisdom that transcended his simple appearance. The other competitors approached cautiously, some openly curious, others still skeptical. They had witnessed a human succeed in ways that many of them could not, despite their power and preparation. Some felt inspired, realizing that intellect, courage, and moral clarity could outweigh advanced technology. Others felt frustration and jealousy, their pride wounded by someone they had once considered insignificant. As evening fell, the city below shimmered under Livoria's twin moons. Lurin returned to his chamber, exhausted yet resolute. He had faced fire, storm, ice, and lightning, and emerged stronger not only in body but in spirit. He knew the trials ahead would test him in ways he had never imagined, but he also felt a quiet confidence. His journey was about more than proving himself. It was about showing that human qualities of heart, determination, and adaptability could rival even the greatest beings in the galaxy. Princess Elira remained awake, contemplating the human's progress. She had never imagined that someone so ordinary in appearance could display such extraordinary skill and integrity. She felt a strange curiosity, a mix of admiration and caution. What was it about this human that allowed him to rise above so many others? And what would the next trials reveal about his character? The palace was quiet, but the currents of destiny were stirring. Lurin had demonstrated that humanity, though often underestimated, could rise above expectation. And Princess Elira, accustomed to certainty and control, found herself both challenged and intrigued. The story of a humble human proving his worth among the stars was far from over, and the trials yet to come promised tests that would push him to his limits. As Lurin rested, he could hear the faint hum of the city below, a reminder that life continued even as the extraordinary unfolded. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, perhaps more dangerous than any he had faced. Yet he also understood that his strength lay not only in his skills, but in his ability to remain calm, observant, and true to his principles. Princess Elira, in her tower, reflected on the events of the day. She had watched countless beings attempt to impress her with strength, wealth, or cunning. But this human had done something different. He had impressed her with character. And for the first time, she wondered if the universe had brought him not only to participate in trials, but to change her perspective and perhaps the future of Livoria itself. The night deepened, stars glittering across the sky, and the palace remained quiet except for the soft footsteps of those preparing for the next day. Lurin slept fitfully, dreams filled with visions of trials yet to come, while Elira remained awake, thinking, observing, and wondering. The story of a humble human and a curious princess was far from over, and the challenges ahead promised to reveal truths that neither had yet imagined. The morning sun rose over Livoria, filling the city with golden light. The crystalline towers sparkled as if celebrating the day. Yet in the palace, tension was thick. Today would be the final trial, the one that would decide not only who had proven their worth, but also who would earn the right to stand before Princess Elira in a way that mattered. Competitors gathered in silence, each aware that the stakes were higher than ever. Lurin awoke with a mixture of anticipation and calm determination. He had survived the previous trials, the maze of strategy, the forest of echoes, the gauntlet of elements, and he had proven himself through courage, intelligence, and integrity. Yet he knew the final challenge would test something deeper, the human spirit itself. It was a trial not only of skill but of heart. Kalen appeared at his door, expression serious. "The final trial awaits," he said. "It is called the Chamber of Truth. Here, each of you will face your greatest fears, your deepest doubts, and your truest self. Only those who remain steadfast will succeed. Remember, Lurin, this is not a test of strength alone. It is a test of everything you have become." The competitors were guided to the chamber, a massive structure that seemed to float above the city. Its walls shimmered with energy, reflecting images of the past, present, and possible future. Each entrant would enter alone, confronting visions designed to challenge their mind and spirit. Many whispered nervously, uncertain of what awaited them. Lurin took a deep breath and stepped forward, trusting in the lessons of the past trials. The moment he entered, the chamber reacted. Lights danced across the walls, forming images of his life, his home colony, and memories he had long held private. The chamber's magic was subtle yet powerful, probing for weaknesses and insecurities. He saw failures he feared, voices of those who doubted him, and visions of being lost or defeated. Yet he remained calm, reminding himself that fear was temporary and only action defined worth. Suddenly, the chamber shifted. New visions appeared, ones not of the past but of choices he might make. Scenarios presented moral dilemmas, impossible challenges, and paths where success seemed certain but required compromise or betrayal. Lurin paused at each, weighing decisions carefully. He remembered the principles that had guided him through all previous trials: integrity, courage, and compassion. Each choice he made reflected these values, and the chamber pulsed brighter in response. Hours seemed to pass in a timeless flow. The chamber tested him relentlessly, presenting illusions of power, temptation, and fear. Competitors outside waited, some doubting whether anyone would emerge successfully. Inside, Lurin moved with quiet determination, facing each challenge not with arrogance but with focus. He helped illusions when possible, navigated traps with care, and rejected shortcuts that compromised his values. Princess Aelira watched from her observation deck, her expression intense. She had witnessed countless beings attempt the Chamber of Truth, but none had endured so long or demonstrated such unwavering focus. Her curiosity had transformed into something deeper: respect, intrigue, and a question she had never considered. Could a simple human without wealth, power, or alien abilities truly embody the qualities she valued most? Finally, Lurin reached the center of the chamber. A glowing crystal, larger than any he had seen before, floated in midair. It pulsed with energy that seemed to respond to his presence. To claim it, he had to step forward without hesitation, trusting in himself completely. The final vision appeared, a mirror showing not only his face but the faces of all those he had helped, guided, and inspired. It reflected his journey, the choices he had made, and the character he had built through courage, compassion, and determination. He reached out, touching the crystal. A wave of light surged through the chamber, dissolving illusions and revealing the truth of his worth. The energy settled into a calm glow, signaling the trial's successful completion. Competitors outside gasped, some in awe, others in disbelief. Lurin had achieved what no one else had: not just survival, not just success, but the demonstration of true character. Princess Aelira descended to the chamber's edge. Her violet eyes were wide with emotion, a mixture of amazement, respect, and something she could not yet name. She regarded Lurin quietly, seeing not just a competitor but someone extraordinary in ways she had never imagined. "You have done what no one else could," she said. "Not because of strength, wealth, or skill, but because you have remained true to yourself, even when faced with fear, temptation, and doubt. Tell me, human, why do you continue to act with courage and compassion when others abandon it for advantage?" Lurin bowed respectfully. "Because I believe that who I am and what I choose to do matters more than what I can gain. Strength and success mean little if they are not guided by heart and purpose. I act as I believe is right, and in doing so, I hope to inspire others to do the same." Aelira studied him silently, absorbing the weight of his words. She had spent centuries surrounded by beings who sought her favor through manipulation, power, or wealth. None had ever spoken with such clarity, honesty, and depth. She realized that this human had something rare: not just courage, intelligence, or skill, but a heart capable of inspiring change. The other competitors approached, their expressions a mix of respect and humility. Many had doubted him, some had mocked him, and others had feared being overshadowed. Yet now they understood that the measures of true worth were not power or status, but integrity, courage, and the willingness to help others. Lurin had not just won the trial, he had changed perceptions, not only of humans but of what it meant to be truly exceptional. Princess Aelira stepped closer to Lurin. "I have rejected thousands of suitors over the centuries," she said softly, "because none have demonstrated the qualities I seek. Yet you, a humble human, have surpassed every expectation. You have shown that greatness does not lie in appearance or wealth, but in character and heart. I wish to know more of you, not as a competitor, but as someone whose presence may shape the future." Lurin felt a mixture of humility and honor. He had not come seeking recognition or reward, yet he realized that his journey had done more than prove his worth. It had opened doors he never imagined. He met the princess's gaze and said simply, "I have only acted as I believe is right. If that has meaning to you, then I am grateful. But my journey is not over, and there is much more to learn and do." Aelira smiled faintly, a rare expression of warmth on her usually composed face. "Then the trials are complete, but perhaps a new journey begins for both of us." She extended her hand, not as a reward for competition but as a gesture of recognition, trust, and shared purpose. Lurin accepted it with respect, understanding the significance of the moment. Outside the chamber, citizens and spectators celebrated quietly. News of the human's success spread quickly, transforming whispers of doubt into admiration. The story of Lurin, a humble human, had reached every corner of Livoria, inspiring beings of all shapes, abilities, and worlds to reconsider the meaning of strength and worth. In the palace, Lurin and Elira walked through the corridors, speaking quietly. Their conversation was not about competition or recognition, but about values, ideas, and shared curiosity. The princess found herself learning from a human, discovering perspectives she had never encountered, while Lurin found guidance and understanding from someone who had experienced centuries of knowledge and wisdom. As the day gave way to night, the city shimmered beneath Livoria's twin moons. Light reflected off the towers like scattered diamonds, creating a scene of quiet wonder. Lurin stood at a balcony beside the princess, looking at the expanse of the city and beyond. He felt a sense of achievement, yes, but also a sense of purpose. His journey had not ended with the trials. He understood now that proving his worth was only the beginning of what he could accomplish. Elira watched him, thoughtful. She had seen countless beings try to impress her with power, cunning, or influence. Yet this human had achieved what none had. He had shown integrity, courage, and heart in their purest forms. She realized that he had not just passed the trials, he had transformed her understanding of what it meant to be truly exceptional. The night grew deeper, stars twinkling above Livoria. The palace was quiet, but the impact of the trials echoed across the city. Lurin had proven that even the humblest being could rise above expectation, that courage and heart could surpass wealth, power, or alien advantage. And Princess Elira, once certain of her choices and her judgment, now faced a future filled with curiosity, possibility, and perhaps change. Together, they looked at the stars, both aware that the trials had ended, but their journey had only begun. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and unknowns, yet they felt ready to face them, not as competitors, but as beings who had discovered the value of integrity, courage, and shared purpose. And so, in the quiet glow of Livoria's towers, the story of a humble human and a curious princess reached its first true conclusion. The trials had tested body, mind, and spirit. Lurin had proven his worth, not through strength alone, but through courage, intelligence, and heart. And the princess, having witnessed this extraordinary journey, found herself changed, inspired, and perhaps ready to embrace a future she had never imagined. The galaxy would remember the name Lurin, not for wealth, not for power, but for the strength of his heart. And Princess Elira, for the first time in centuries, understood that true greatness could come from the most unexpected places.